Hello and welcome to Noobs in Progress. My name is Nathan, and here with me I have...
Ethan Murphy, Nathan Betty's friend.
Hello, Ethan. How are you doing today?
My friend, I am good. I am good. I was just telling you how I actually am now doing things that I like doing. So I'm actually good. I'm good. My friend,
Yes.
how are you? Besides handsome.
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Been a busy day. Fairly busy, but just plugging along. So, um, and yes, to
For
answer your
those of you
question.
that
Oh,
go,
good.
answer answer the question.
Well, I was going to answer because you'd ask about the new logo, and yes, I got it, and I put it up on the podcast feed. But the thing is, I can't change it for Twitch because then it would be Twitch. I would be switching back and
No,
forth. So
yes, no, I realized too. I was like, I was asking was like, did I get you the logo as far as the best resolution version of it?
oh yeah, you got me a
because
massive. I opened it up and it was like, wow, and I was like, oh my god, and it's sexy
okay.
as hell. I love it.
Okay, make sure you get it. Okay, all right, cool.
Yes.
Yes. For those of you that do not know or can't tell, Nate has two lovely kids. I have none, which is why he gets worn out, and I am not.
Oh god, yeah, it's like uh but it's one of those things where it's like, you spend the whole day chasing after them and stop fighting with your sister. Yeah. And then one of them is just sitting there and there's the song playing and both of them start singing along with the song, and you're just sitting there listening to it and going, yeah, they're fucking cute. Shit. Makes it worth it.
Yeah, that's their evolutionary design is that they're cute.
Mhm.
If they weren't so cute, you would definitely kill them or eat them or both. But because they are so cute, it's like, well, I can't. What can I do?
Well, the
Their
thing
defense mechanism works every time.
Yeah, well, the thing is they're essentially my retirement plan. It's like I'm banking on the fact that one of them will be a doctor or a lawyer or something, and that they will take care of me in my youth, because Lord knows I haven't taken care of myself. Of course,
No,
I've kind of
what's funny is you also said is that they would take care of me in my youth because Lord knows I haven't taken care of myself.
in
It's
my
funny that
youth.
you
Wow.
said that you haven't taken care of yourself in your youth because
Yes, that shows you
I
the
love
day
it. No,
I've
I love
had.
it. I love
Yes.
it.
Oof.
It
So
does, my friend.
yes,
It does. Well. On that wonderfully positive, amazing, uplifting note,
it's magical.
it's magical. It is magical. Would you like to regale us with what we are going to be featuring next?
Yes. And but before I'm going to very subtly look at you and go, it's Better Call Saul, right? Right. That was the yes,
It's Better
yes,
Call
Better Call
Saul.
Saul. It's Better Call Saul. We're going to be watching. We're just going to watch for the sake of time. We're going to watch the first episode and chat about it. We because of that, and because I haven't. I'm the noob. I'm the noob. And I haven't seen it yet. But because of that, we're not going to be talking about any spoilers of Better Call Saul, but we are going to be spoiling the hell out of Breaking Bad. So,
Right.
yeah, we will probably be spending a lot of time talking about Breaking Bad because both of us are old hats at Breaking Bad. But
Yes.
Better Call Saul, I'm new to. I haven't watched it, and so we're gonna watch the first episode next week, and talk. Well, we're gonna watch it this week, and then we're gonna talk about it next week.
Yeah.
Semantics.
Yes. That's how time and space work. But
Yes.
yes, so it'll definitely be reviewing the pilot, and then it'd be fun to get into your theories because that's one thing we can do with this show as well is we can discuss theories and hypotheses and
Mm-hmm.
other fun things. And like you said, yes, we will of course get into all kinds of heavy spoilers for Bryan Cranston's masterpiece that is
Mm-hmm.
Breaking Bad, and that'll be fun
Yes.
because it is an entire series that we both watched, and we haven't actually talked about that much with each other.
No, we haven't. Though we both did see, we were in the same room with Bryan Cranston. Both,
Yes,
yes,
we came to UVA.
yes. He came to UVA, and we happened to be at the same event. So that was a great talk too.
Yes,
It was very
yes, it was a
interesting.
great talk, and the best
Yeah.
part was he dedicated like the last around the last 10 minutes just talking about how important improv was. And
Oh yeah.
improv, of course, is where you and I met. So.
Yep. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was awesome to see because it's always fun when you see that like pop up in it pops up in a lot with acting. It is improv is just so important to keep you on your feet because I know personally there have been many times where I've been on stage in a show that I've done and I realize halfway through the scene that I've been on autopilot. Like I have not been in the moment. I have just been going and the thing is I know everything's fine because nobody's staring at me like, what did you just say? So I know that the scene just is going fine and everybody's just doing their lines and I'm just like it's almost like I'm on, complete autopilot and not paying attention.
Yeah.
Where improv teaches you not to do that
Right.
because like you can like there's a certain level of acting you can get to on autopilot where it's like okay that's passable, that's like prime time, comedy level passable
Yes.
quality of acting, but it's when you're fully in the moment is when you can get like Breaking Bad level shit, is and I think that's the important thing about improv.
Yes. Absolutely. And another thing as well is that I was just talking to our friend Sam Stokes last night.
Mm-hmm.
We're out, and one thing that happens to people a lot is they get way too far into their own heads about something, and they get kind of such tunnel vision on things that it almost limits them. You get so focused on something that you almost lose focus on it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
We all do that. And it was one thing that Jesse Owens was known for doing was that he would deliberately give himself some kind of a distraction before a big race to
Mm-hmm.
almost like loosen himself up, give himself
Mm-hmm.
breathing room essentially, and it worked obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
So it yeah. And improv, like you're saying, tying it all together, improv really does. It teaches you how to be in the moment, how to kind of be flexible and keep moving, keep functioning,
Mm-hmm.
to roll with the punches or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so true. So, so next week improv. No,
Oh
Better Call
wait,
Saul.
not improv.
Well, it's actually and it's actually applicable because what's his nuts?
Say it. Bob Odenkirk. Bob Odenkirk.
Bob Odenkirk. Like
Yeah.
that was one of his early, like like a lot of his early comedy stuff was
Yeah.
improv based stuff,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
I think
Mr. Show and
yeah.
then the other one, another more recent one on Netflix, of Bob and Dave or something. With David
Yeah.
Cross.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, he's just that's a lot of the basis of his stuff, and a lot of stuff's hilarious,
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that's what we're doing next week. So we have our typical questionnaire, and yet again, you are the one to administer it because, as always, I am the noob.
Of course, I will administer it. So, do you want me? So, you actually want me to go ahead and say the full name out loud? You said.
Hey man, free country. You do whatever you for now.
Yeah.
But
All
but
right. Let me just step into this church. Okay. So, the official Noobs in Progress pre-coital questionnaire. All right.
yeah.
As you take a sip, have you
Yeah.
heard of the show?
Yes.
Yeah, very simple, straightforward. Now, what have you heard about the show?
Heard that it's good.
Mm-hmm.
I've heard like I know that it's essentially a prequel to the Breaking Bad series. It's essentially how Saul, the lawyer from the show, like essentially how he got to where he was at when you first meet with him in
Right.
Breaking Bad, and and I like and I've heard, and from what I understand, it like he started off, and please don't correct me if I'm wrong, because I want to be surprised. I heard that like he was actually like the show actually kind of follows his being earnest and actually wanting to become a lawyer, but then everything just goes to shit and he ends up becoming a shyster. Could be wrong. But I one thing that I haven't heard is its level of quality compared to Breaking Bad. Which makes me curious because typically when you have a show like that, like, I'll take Frasier and Cheers. Like one of the one of the things that you will hear a lot is that Frasier is, in a lot of respects, better than Cheers. Obviously, there are Cheers fans who disagree, but
Of
the
course.
general consensus is Frasier is a better quality comedy than Cheers was. Um, and I haven't heard anything about Breaking Bad or Better Call Saul versus Breaking Bad. I also understand they're kind of different shows, so the
Right.
comparison might not work. But yeah, I'm really interested to watch it. I'm really interested to see it.
What's funny too is how Better Call Saul just it doesn't seem to have gotten nearly the hype
Yeah,
that Breaking Bad did. Now Breaking Bad didn't get the hype until the later seasons. The first three
yeah,
seasons it was still kind of finding itself, and then it went to Netflix. And because people
yeah.
were able to catch up and watch all the episodes, like, oh my gosh, this show's amazing. And
Mhm.
so when it got to season 4, that's when it
Mhm.
really turned up. The
Yeah,
show was great from the start, but people didn't show up for it until like the fourth season.
yeah.
Um, so I'm glad that you are so in the dark about the show because most people are as well.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'll leave that as it is. I will not tip my hand in any way. I
Okay.
will not tell you that Saul dies in the 4th episode. Wait.
Wait, what?
All right. Now, why haven't you seen it?
uh, reasons.
Cool.
Like.
Next question. Oh,
Well, the reality is, it's just because I've just been busy, and it's while I really enjoyed Breaking Bad, I do like Breaking Bad is a heavy show. Like it is a
yeah.
heavy show, and so when I was done with it, and I know Better Call Saul was there was a gap between the two, and I was caught up on Breaking Bad when it ended. Um, there was a part of me that was like, I might just take a break for a little bit before I revisit this world. Because while I love the world, it's a heavy world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I do want to see, and maybe we can watch it the movie that Netflix did that was the sequel
El
to Breaking
Camino.
Bad, El Camino. Yeah, haven't seen that either. So that put that on the list as well. So,
Sure.
but
Sure.
yes.
Yeah. Okay. Right on. That makes perfect sense. And I think that's mostly what it is that you just life happened for
Yeah.
you. You have a family and things
Oh
to take
yeah.
care of. So it's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly fine.
Well,
Um,
shows in particular are hard just because they're a longer time commitment than a movie. Like a
yeah.
lot of times with movies, I can just sit down and watch it. Like
Right.
if I
Right.
get an afternoon or something, or even before I go to bed, I can be like, oh, I'll watch this Ant-Man or something that I might have
Yeah.
missed. But with a show, it's a lot harder to. It's a bigger commitment.
And plus the like you mentioned, Better Call Saul presumably is a bit more of a drama, and obviously
Yeah,
Breaking Bad definitely was a drama.
yeah,
Sometimes when you actually are able to just cut loose and unwind and relax after a hard day, the last thing you want is a heavy show to deal with
hmm
or something heavy. I know dealing with was COVID and quarantine. I've been doubling down on escapism. I've been doubling down on watching
hmm
anime or more fun type of kind of programming movies that are just wild and insane, fun. Because it's the last thing I want is to dwell in the misery I may be feeling otherwise.
yeah.
So I get it. I get it sometimes. Yeah.
Well, and one thing like with Breaking Bad as well, and I think this might also be like a subconscious deterrent is I love Breaking Bad. And that first season is an amazing season of television.
Yeah.
But man, every episode I would walk away just feeling like shit. And
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it was the fact that because that's the season where he's like he's impotent. Like he is just he's just starting to
Right.
become Heisenberg.
Heisenberg.
A-
Yeah.
yeah, and he's so for a good portion of the season, he's just this pathetic, impotent man.
Right.
And I remember watching it and being like, man, hmm, yeah, I need some. Yeah, this makes me not like my choices in life. Like it just,
Right. Right.
you
No,
know.
it's man, it's because it's so well written, because it's such a
Mhm.
well performed show, so well made show. It's so easy to identify with the character, and
Mhm.
that's the problem. Because he is a frail, weak man in so many ways. You kind of makes you think about your own weaknesses and things of that nature. And it's like,
Mhm.
man, life is hard. Man, anything can happen to me. I mean, not get too much in this book. Obviously, we're already talking about the show and spoilers for it, but
Yeah.
it deals with kind of some worst case scenarios or some things you hoped against all hope that would never happen. And when they do, and you see somebody struggling with them, it's like, oh man, that's oof, that's hit. That could hit close to home. For some, I'm
Mhm.
sure it did hit close to home. So it's like, yikes. Those kind of things aren't
Yeah.
always the easiest of, or aren't always the easiest shows to, deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Sure.
okay.
Okay. Now, here is the thing. Ironically enough, on the tail of that, are you a fan of the genre? And what I will say, I guess, is the easiest way to put it because you're not entirely sure. The genre is close enough for the. I mean, it's from the same people who made the exact same people who made Breaking Bad. It is a
Mhm.
direct prequel, well, not direct, but it's
Mhm.
set in a time period in the same universe
Mhm.
before Breaking Bad, so you can fill in the gaps as to what the genre is.
Okay. So like I would take it as like cable drama essentially, like
Mm-hmm.
because well, yeah. Um like this is the same spot as like, oh geez, I'm trying, like my brain just completely blanked, but yeah, cable dramas. So
Sure. Yeah.
yeah, I am a fan. I am a fan of those. I do like them. It depends on the type. Like, I really like Dexter. I liked Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Um, there's a couple others that I enjoyed, that are in that kind of field, that I really enjoyed. Now, there were some, like, I actually wasn't that big of a fan of Game of Thrones because,
Did you
like,
see it yet?
I've seen just parts of it, and I've read like the first half of the first book, and I just got to the point where, and like from what I knew of like later stuff, I was just like, I don't want to get attached to characters who are going to be eviscerated in horrible ways later on. So I'm just gonna skip this because yeah.
You're right.
And and it's kind of like that. And I was trying to think what was the other example. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I
keep in
enjoy.
mind. Keep in mind. You said this right after talking about how you like Dexter, the show about a
Well,
character
well, but see, the thing is that
murdering.
yes, but he murdered people I wanted him to murder.
Fair, fair,
And
fair.
that's actually the like you actually hit the nail right on the head of of a weird quirk of mine where I'm okay with things like Dexter, but I'm not okay with things like Game of Thrones, because with Game of Thrones they're like, "Oh, you see this thing? You see this thing? You like this thing, don't you? We want you to like this thing. Yeah, we're gonna
Right.
kill it." And Dexter's like, here's this guy. Yeah, he's a serial killer, but he only kills other killers. So, and then we're going to show you the killers killing things that like children and puppies. And then you're like, okay, yeah, Dexter, kill him. And then,
Right. Right.
so
Oh,
they
and
handled
that
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 fairly
is
well.
such a they did it was, well for the most part till like the
Well,
end,
for the first like
but
4 seasons.
for the first four seasons especially. But the thing about it is, what's funny about that, and it's a much bigger conversation, is just the idea, the cathartic feeling we get out of seeing someone equalize retribution on
Hmm.
somebody else. Like
Hmm.
John Wick. I'm pretty sure you haven't seen
Yeah.
John Wick because you're a family man. But John Wick, you probably know, at least the
Yeah.
actual setup. Yeah. So it's like, yeah, you killed a puppy. A puppy.
Hmm.
There, everything you do in retaliation for that is 100% justified. You can't go
Oh
over
yeah.
the top with what you do. We're
Yeah.
okay with it. We're completely okay with it. However, if you're watching a show and a natural event happens that kills someone that you like, you're like, how dare you? I can't watch the show anymore. I'm done. So there's a weird, it's a weird thing that we have as far as what kind of
Hmm.
demises are we okay with.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
and there's another piece to it as well. I think that you've got the like you've got the thing with Game of Thrones where you get attached to a character and then the character dies, and there's this like emotional thing, which admittedly is what the author is trying to do, but for me, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to feel that. So I'm skipping it. Where with like Dexter, well, we could stick with the example, or even Breaking Bad. Like I think Breaking Bad is good. Like the spoilers for Breaking Bad, but when Giancarlo Esposito, when he dies, like there's, with all of the horrible things he did throughout the show, when he's killed, I wasn't attached to that character. I didn't like that character. So I'm like, okay, yes, that character does within the weird justice, the scales of justice. Yeah, no, you should have half of your face fried off.
Oof.
Um,
But the
so
thing
yeah.
is, he's a character that you love to hate. Like I loved
Mhm,
Gustavo Fring. I love the way
mhm,
Giancarlo Esposito played him. I love that he was in fact a worthy opponent for Walt, for someone that's a
mhm,
master genius. This
mhm,
is his worthy opponent. So,
mhm.
and you kind of need that. You
Yeah.
need someone to push your main character or your protagonist to the limits. So,
Mhm.
so yeah, I get what you're saying as far as he was an evil person, he deserved to die, sure. But I also, at the same time, where do you go from there?
Yeah.
What kind of
Well,
a you know?
I was just gonna say that I think they had kind of gotten to a point where they were like, we really can't escalate this back and forth anymore. We have to do something like
Yes,
somebody got to die, and we aren't ready to kill Walt yet.
right.
So uh so I think they they took it to where they could, ended that, and then if you look, actually, there's a lot more seasons before he dies than after. In
Yes,
fact,
yes.
what
I think it's four. He does in the end of the fourth season. Yeah,
yeah, so and Breaking Bad was 7 seasons or
six.
six.
No.
Six.
Actually, it might be. Yeah, no, because I know one season they had kind of split it in half. Essentially, they showed it.
Yeah.
Yes, I can't remember exactly how many there are.
Yeah, but there's not many, and frankly, if I remember correctly, the post Gustavo Fring's, half fry, he it almost immediately goes into starting to reveal, and Hank's getting closer, and now, and it
Yeah.
goes
Oh yeah,
from,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, it goes from being a gangster to gangster to or cartel to cartel to the feds, and
Right.
which I think that's what makes Breaking Bad, and I'll shut up about Breaking Bad here in a moment, but I think that's
No,
what
no,
makes
no,
Breaking
no, no.
Bad
Don't lie. Don't lie to people. Don't lie.
well, I think that's what makes Breaking Bad such an excellent show, because almost from jump, the overall, the overarching, um uh conflict is Walter White versus the law, but
Yeah.
they successfully made that a subplot for a majority of the run, and
Yeah.
then brought it back when they were like, okay, now we're ready to end this, so let's make this. So it was like, they were able to create this overarching conflict, and then play, you know, play in other spaces, and keeping it there, but play in other spaces with Cartel to Cartel, Gustavo Fring, all that stuff. Um, and then bring it back, and it was just done so well that I think that's one of the major successes of the show.
No, I agree. I agree.
Mhm.
It is a really well written show, really well performed, and I think we're gonna have to actually sit down and have you watch the pilot episode of Game of Thrones, start to finish, for noobs, because I think that's part of the idea. Is there are lots of similarities. It's the idea of actually getting invested in the story and the characters in the world, and
Mhm,
wanting to see what happens, and actually wanting to see when someone
mhm,
that is evil gets taken down, or when
mhm,
someone that you like gets taken down by somebody evil, and then wanting to see what happens to that person in retaliation. So
mhm,
it does work in a similar fashion as far as getting invested in a character's journey,
mhm,
and seeing how it unfolds, or multiple characters' journeys and how they unfold.
mhm.
But yeah, that's that massive tangential diatribes
But we
aside.
digress.
Moving on to but we digress. We a lot.
Well, but one thing though, you do have one pretty big thing going against you with Game of Thrones, is the fact that I know how it ends, and
Sure.
I know,
With this, yeah, and that
yeah,
ending is, yeah, that's, yeah,
that last season just off
Wait,
the
is that what
rails.
did you watch it the last
I didn't
season?
watch it, but I read the synopsis and everything, and pretty much everybody's complained about it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
it.
that's fair. It's the last, but don't you can't. It's oh my gosh, last season. It's the same thing as if you watched. If someone said, here's how Dexter ends. Here's the last season of Dexter."
Mhm.
It's like, wait a minute, what? So yeah, you've had your you've had your uh, image of that show distorted and painted so much against you from the start. It's
I'm
such an
not.
uphill battle. It's an uphill
I am
battle.
not. I will not say like I want it clear. I recognize that it is probably a fantastic show, but it's one of those things where it's like I know how it's going to make me feel, and I
Yeah,
don't want to feel those feelings. So
yeah.
why put myself through that? It's like saying you need to go to this dentist and get this root canal. I don't like root canals. I don't need a root canal. Well, you just go. And you know what I mean? So like, that's kind of like what I recognize is it's probably a fantastic, very well done show until the 8th season. But,
Yeah.
yeah, but prior to so, like that's kind of where I'm coming from. But
I got you.
I'll watch the first episode for Noobs though. I'll do it for
Fair.
you. I'll
And
do
it's only 1 hour, and then you can obviously call it quits. Just for my own peace of mind, I want your eyeballs to see one full stretch of the show, and then so you can say, because if you're like, I don't like this show, have you seen it? Of course not. So it's like a kid. You have small children, and
Well,
you're like, here, try some of this food. I don't like that. Have you ever had it before? No. What about?
well, yeah, I completely understand. I completely understand where you're coming from, but yeah, but I will watch the first episode for you.
Fair. Oh, you little sweetheart, you. So the next question, this is obviously a no-brainer, but are you a fan of the franchise? Which you already know is obviously yes.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah. the franchise is, at this point, is more or less Breaking Bad.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you hoping to see?
I'm hoping there's at least some funny to it. Like I don't know if it's a comedy or if it goes full blown drama from right off the bat,
Yeah.
or what. But because I know the Saul in Breaking Bad was the comic relief. He and Jesse essentially were the comic relief, which the show needed. Like the show was very
Yeah.
well written, but like we've said, it's got very heavy, and
Yeah.
I
Because
think,
Jesse was not the comic relief later on. He was going through
oh
some
no,
serious shit. Yeah. So
oh god,
they
yeah,
needed some comic relief. Yeah.
yeah, they needed comic relief, and I remember specifically the times that I laughed in the first season and the second season are almost exclusively for the Saul scenes.
Yeah.
Like and that and the scene where Jesse was trying to pick out the plastic bin to put the bodies in, and he's trying to get
Oh
in it in the middle
yeah.
of Home Depot. That was just fucking
Right.
hilarious.
Right. Right.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm hoping to laugh at least a little bit.
Okay, fair. That's fair. And I will say this again. Bob Odenkirk is great. I'll just say that
Mhm.
he's great. Now,
Okay.
what are you afraid to see? And you can't say Game of Thrones because it's not in this show.
I am terrified of seeing Game of Thrones. No, I would like to see. Or no, I'm afraid. I see. Yeah, no, not what I want to see. What I don't want to see. Um, I really don't know. I really don't know if I have an answer to that because I hope it's good. I'm afraid that it's not a good show. I guess I don't know.
It'll sully your love for Breaking Bad somehow. You're
Well,
afraid to see that.
I don't think there's really nothing that like outside of like finding out that Vince Gilligan and uh, Bryan Cranston were running a human trafficking ring during the shooting. There's very little that could sully that show.
Right.
Um, but uh, the
Look, you pulled those out real quick. That was a real. Like I'm wondering, did I miss? Did I not see the news today?
well, yeah, I could have just said it unless I pulled a Kevin Spacey, but the
Oh,
thing is because yeah, like House of Cards, that was another show that I did enjoy until I
yeah.
didn't. Um,
Until yeah.
but but I guess for me is I'm hoping that the writing is at least good. Like it doesn't.
Okay.
I don't expect it to be Breaking Bad level, but I'm worried that the fall from quality at Breaking Bad to Better Call Saul is far, and I hope that's not the
Aha.
case.
Right, right. And because a part of what it is, of course, is coming. It's the same problem that any Star Wars movie,
Hmm.
Star Wars sequel would have, or
Hmm.
one of my favorite shows of all time. Or I guess my favorite show of all time is Korra, The Legend of Korra, which is part of
Hmm.
Avatar: The Last Airbender. And Legend of Korra is an amazing, great show. But because it follows up to another amazing, great show, Avatar: The Last Airbender, it got such a raw deal as far as people's expectations were
Hmm.
so over the moon and for
Hmm.
some people, it could never live up to it. With this
Yeah.
show, it's a similar thing where it's like you obviously hold Breaking Bad on a pretty high pedestal. How
Hmm.
the higher the pedestal, the greater it'll fall. So of course, it's
Hmm.
it's very very easy for it to fall short in that regard. So
Yeah.
I got you. I
Yeah.
got you. All right.
Hmm.
Question number 8. Do you think you will like this show?
Yes, I think I will.
Oh,
Because I think I don't I while my fear is that the writing will drop pretty far. I don't think it will.
right.
I don't think it would have lasted as long as it has so far. Um, if it hadn't been at least somewhat good and had been
Right.
at least half a measure of what Breaking Bad was. And also I like Bob Odenkirk. I think he's hilarious. I think whether this is a drama or comedy, I'm not sure. But also, who plays his brother? I do remember his brother.
Yes, Martin Mull.
Um,
Is it Martin Mull?
no,
Wait,
is
is
it
that his
Martin
name?
Mull?
Michael? Not, is it Michael
Uh, Mi-
Keane or
Michael
it's
Keaton. That's who it
Michael
is.
Keane. Michael Keane.
Yeah. He's it's funny, I get him mixed up with Martin Mull too.
Yeah.
Um, it's
Yeah,
it's
because of Clue.
yeah, it's a clue. Um, but yeah, he's really good. I like him. So I'm very interested to see the dynamic there and to see.
Yes,
I think I'm gonna like it. I think yes. I think I'm gonna like it.
I do too. I do too. Actually, I do too. Here's what I'll say. Also, what's fun about Michael Keane and Bob Odenkirk? They are seasoned, highly trained comedians. We were
Hmm.
talking about Best in Show and uh, some other things like that Michael Keane's been in before. He was in Dream On, I believe, as well. At one time, he was in Clue, amazing actor in Clue. He's an extremely funny person, very well trained comedian. Bob Odenkirk,
Hmm.
the same thing. And I've always said, you've always said the same thing. Comedians tend to be able to do drama really, really well, either because they
Hmm.
have their comedy comes from such a source of pain or as a
Hmm.
mechanism or whatever. But it's highly evident with the two of them in a lot of their scenes. You'll see it in the show. They are
Hmm.
amazing actors that happen to
Hmm.
be very funny. Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, I think and we touched on it earlier. I think a big reason for that is comedians tend to, the improv is more of is more considered a comedic acting vehicle. It can be done, you can do dramatic improv. There's long form. There's all of that,
yeah,
but I think in comedy, even if you're just a stand up comedian, um, there is a level of presence that you need to have,
hmm
especially if you're getting heckled or you need to be able to
right,
handle that kind of stuff.
yeah,
And and then, like there are some actors who, or some comedians who they're not good actors because they're too selfish in the way. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a stand-up comedians tend to
that don't give
sometimes.
of themselves. Yeah,
Yeah,
don't. Yeah, yeah,
exactly. They tend to be people that like, 'cause what is stand-up comedy? You stand up there by yourself with a mic doing your thing. And some stand-up
you're
comedians are, they tend to take a little more than they give
very
in
true.
scenes.
Right,
And
and
but
part of like you're very insightful what you're saying because it's the idea that if you're going to go up on a stage as a stand-up comedian, the best thing you can do is be genuine and
mhm,
forthcoming and open. Like George
mhm,
Carlin was the kind of the quintessential example of that. Richard Pryor too, like they were kind of,
mhm,
it's like this is me. I'm up here, all my flaws. I want you to see it. It's highly
mhm,
relatable. Also, it comes across as being that much. The genuineness is entertaining. So if you're able to convey that genuineness, that genuine pain that you have, and laugh with other people as they laugh at your pain, and all you guys are able to laugh together. It's
Mhm.
great. The problem that may happen is when a comedian, like you said, is selfish, doesn't try to share that with the audience,
Mhm.
or is fake, or if when they go onto a movie set, they're like, well, now I got to be something different. I can't be what I was
Mhm.
on stage. I have to kind of
Mhm.
protect myself. It's like, well, you've forgotten that you've just lost the point of who you are. So
Yeah. Yeah, in fact, it's interesting. One of my favorite comedians of all time and actors of all time was Robin Williams, and early on in both his acting and his comedic career,
yeah,
he was actually known for being a very selfish, and in terms of like especially in improv, like he would jump into improv groups, and he did his entire career. There did hit a point where uh the people who would be doing improv with him would kind of just not care because it was him and because he was so
right,
good at what he did that it even in being selfish he was still giving them things like
right,
so while he was taking all the laughs he was giving them an opportunity to be a really good straight man, kind of thing.
right,
um but early on he was known for being very selfish and being very because I think he when he got on stage he was voracious, like he
yeah,
needed the attention. But backstage, there's a really great podcast. It's called, I think it's called, it might be called Finding Robin or something. I'll try to find it and tell you about it. But it's essentially they went to the guy who did his biography. Um, and it was a biography that the guy was actually working on before Robin died,
yeah,
and then Robin died and he released it. And I can't remember the name of the person, but this group made a podcast and it essentially tells the story in podcast form of Robin's life. And it was fascinating. And it talks a lot about this being, like being present on stage, improv, how he was. So like that's part of the reason why I bring it up, because I think it's interesting to me how different actors and comedians handle that part of being on stage or
right.
being in a scene or what have you.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, and like
so
you said,
anyway.
that's a different angle too on the idea. Like you said, being selfish. That is
Mhm.
one thing too. Where in improv, we are the exercises. I know we're on a massive dive. We're out of questions though.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah.
if you want to stop listening, go ahead. But but the one of the exercises we go into early is a that samurai game where we're going in slow motion samurai, where we
Mhm.
a whole group of us will have our samurai swords and we'll attack one another and try to kill each other until there's only one samurai standing. And the whole
Mhm.
idea is that by going slow, uh, only one of you can, of course, take the other one out. You have to be able to accept
Mhm.
that you might have to give it up to the other person that you're with,
Mhm.
your scene partner. And that,
Yep.
of course, is the whole idea, the whole foundation of doing improv is that it's not just you up there; it's your teammates that really help you make the
Mhm.
scene. So if there's one person up there that keeps doing everything or taking everything away from everybody else, it makes things that much worse. Which is the whole point
Mhm.
of yes and is about sharing.
Yes.
No but is all about
Mhm.
someone coerce just completely corrupting the scene and taking everything for
Mhm.
themselves.
Yep. Yeah. I I remember, and this was actually before I was in class with you, and doing improv. But when I didn't fully appreciate it until I took that class and understood what had happened. I was in musical, and I was actually playing two roles,
Mm-hmm.
because I was the narrator character, and the person who was playing the big bad had to drop out for some reason, and so the narrator character was actually a very small role. It was only there. It was the character was only on stage at the beginning of the act one, beginning of act two, and at the end.
Right.
um so I totally could have been both characters, so I was. And it was interesting because there was a scene in a dress rehearsal, and it was like final dress. It was one of the. and I completely froze on stage. I was in the middle of a speech and I forgot my next line. And it just wasn't there. It just absolutely wasn't there. And there was a beat, and one of my fellow actors on the stage, she realized, she could see it in my face. Oh, he doesn't know what his next line is. And she's a phenomenal actress, and she picked up on it and ran with it, and we improv'd a couple of lines. And it got me back on track, and we were fine.
Yeah.
Well, the next night, it wasn't final dress. It was the pre-final dress. It was final dress, and I was the narrator, and the narrator had these long soliloquies. And one thing I didn't mention was, while the narrator was doing his thing, all of the actors were on stage, but they were all frozen. And
Okay.
it was just me. So I didn't have anybody, and I froze there, and I completely forgot.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And
So no one could help you. No one could help
no
you.
one could help me. And I was on my own, and I was just like, and I'm going through my speech, and like, I could tell the actor, and I'm supposed to be walking around the actors, and I could tell they were trying to get me the line. They were like, and trying to do it in a way that wasn't like obvious, because
Right.
they're supposed to be statues.
You found the one character, one position that you could be in that couldn't get help.
Yeah. It was jarring. Like, it was jarring to see the difference. And it happened one night after the other. And, it was just one of those things where
you didn't you didn't bother having like cue cards afterwards and said, look, I'll just keep cue cards right here.
Well, actually, funny aside there. I only ever
we're already on the aside. This is the aside's aside.
We're so aside. We're about to just step back into our original position.
Right.
But during that show, from that point on, I only ever would forget my lines during the first narration, the beginning of the show, and I did it like once or twice during the run. And the reason was because the second night of the run, so actual audience, I realized halfway through my opening narration that my fly was down.
Huh.
And
that broke
everything. And it completely it froze me because I couldn't do anything about it. I'm sitting there with my fly wide open. Everybody can see my boxers. They might be able to see, this is a family show and it's no longer a family show. Like, potentially, I don't know. I can't see and I can't check because, I can't check. So I just completely, I was just like,
man, that is, what are you doing? Why?
And then for the rest of the run, I would have to, if I didn't do a double check on my fly, I would screw up the opening monologue.
Absolutely. Of course you would. Yeah, because now again, tying it all back to what we said before about focusing, you weren't even aware of focusing at all on your lines. You were only focusing on your fly. So you were like, there were no lines in your head. It was just fly, all fly.
Yeah.
So you needed a distraction from your fly. To help you
I hated that show. I haven't mentioned the name. I haven't mentioned the company because I hated that show. It was the one show that I wish I could remove from my acting history, but I'm glad I didn't because it did give me a lot of experiences that I have since used.
Of
to
course.
Keep myself. I always check my fly before I go on stage.
That, my friends. On that note, that is the moral of the story. That is the final line of the entire episode of tonight. Always check your fly.
Always. Even if you don't have one.
Especially if you don't have one.
Oh my God. All right. Well, so I guess we're going to game a little bit, not too long because I know it's already kind of late. But yeah, so we're going to game a little bit. So we're going to head on out. So take a quick break and then we're going to be back, and play. But for those of you on the podcast, thank you so much for listening. Be sure to check us on YouTube, Twitch, all those fun places. Ethan, do you have anything to say before I wrap the first part of the show up?
Yes. Don't worry, we'll have plenty more diatribes and tangents next week after Nate has seen Better Call Saul.
Yes, yes. So watch Better Call Saul, and then come back next week, next Wednesday, and watch Better Call and listen to us talk about how we watched Better Call Saul as well.
Yes.
So thank you all, and see you soon.